we have time scarcity all around. With these remarks, may I request Dr. Deepak Bhatt to make his presentation, please.
Thank you, Professor Estimuni, Chair of the webinar. Thank you for your kind words and providing me this opportunity to talk in webinar hosted by National Institute of Advanced Studies, NIAS. And thank you to Mile. He promptly contacted me after a decade, and in between we were not in touch. We remember JNU days and his IDSA days, and he asked me to provide some time for a webinar, and I probably say, okay, go ahead, because I will manage time, because it is good to have interaction with students and especially with the students who are involved or that are enrolled in the strategic and the security studies. And this is all things they do for me, but now I will directly go to the topic. And as introduced by Mile and explained by Professor Muni while talking about the relevance of the topic and the seminar in India-Nepal relations. And when it comes to the Nepal-India relations, yes, there are historical facts, there are religious, there are geographical, demographic, all dimensions, and security and defense, all these things are there. And in changing time, relations have been changing. And with the emergence of the new political system in both the countries, and especially in the Nepal's context, 7 decades political transition and role of India and role of political parties and ups and downs in the relations, and these are always counted. And changing societies, as developing societies, both the societies have been changing, and the border as seen open and porous border. Now it seems with lockdown we can see that Indian peoples are stranded on the Nepali side and Nepalese people are stranded on the Indian border side, which is unique in our open border sense, because this pandemic, COVID-19, and its impact has shown that there are borders. The openness is not openness like as we have seen earlier. And so this is one change, we can see the recent change. And when it comes to the recent map and the Limpiadura, Lipu Lake and the Kalapani issue, and what Nepalese mindset and the Nepals have been saying, it's not only this time that Nepal talked about the Limpiadura or the origin of the Mahakali River. This is one recent issue of Nepal-India relation, which have been raised by Nepali politicians and the Nepali people since 1970s. When Hemoti Nandan Bhaguna was chief minister in Uttar Pradesh, it was not the Uttarakhand days. And commissioner of the Uttarakhand, Uttar Pradesh, and that particular, Kumaon division has been submitted memorandum Rashtriya Panchayat leader elected from that particular provision, district, Darchula, and the village was Changru. So the Bahadur Singh Aitwal was a person who handed over these memorandum to the Indian authorities, and he raised this issue in 1973 in Kathmandu. Since then, the area Nepal has said this belongs to Nepal, and the Indian security forces are residing there, and that is the problem. And so the occupation of the Nepali land was raised at the time, and we all know that the 17 checkposts on the northern border, it was big issue in the Nepalese security context and Nepalese other Nepal-India relations context. But now when Nepal said that if this is the, and we can also recall 1996 Mahakali Treaty. So Mahakali Treaty is another turning point in Nepal-India relations, because it was passed by House of Representatives and by 2/3 majority, because it is described as a treaty. So now we can, talking about the Mahakali Treaty, integrated treaty in terms of whole use of the water resource, distribution of the electricity generation, and at that time also the origin of the Mahakali River was issue. And in small cases, many areas, no man's land and other issues or other points are also seen as the encouragement of the disputed land. But most of the cases, by boundary working group, by the joint mechanism of both the governments, that has been resolved. And we can say that major parts of the other remaining border area, the border management, and the updating the pillars and the referent pillars, and the making clear no man's land is under progress. But basically in the Susta and Kalapani, Limpiadura, two places, the issue has been remained left. And time and again, whenever there are the formal visits of the prime ministers of Nepal to India, or the vice versa, this issue has been remained raised issue in the joint statements and everywhere since 1997, as I remember with the date. But till the date, this is issue. Now, where are we today? We see from Nepalese perspective that yes, the things are changing, and only historical context, as sometimes there is a multi-party society, changing society, economic dimension, security dimension, and all international factors, including China, US, sometimes maybe it was Soviet Russia, which built a big portion of the East-West Highway. Many things are there, but now, as India is flexing its muscles as a global power and big economy in the world scenario, how it has been maintaining its relation, quote unquote, with the immediate first, or immediate neighbors first, or the immediate neighbors first. So then, with the geography in terms of size in international relations, the sovereignty is equal. That means that you have to deal with the former governments, but it is not only limited to the government, because it's people-to-people relation. And if you talk about the public diplomacy and other dimensions of the diplomacy, because we can see that the sports to music to movies, it is varied, and it is was spanned in many aspects of the public diplomacy also, or the other types of forms of the diplomacy, and even defense part also. So now Nepal as emergence and has entered into a political established a new political system, Federal Democratic Republic. As we see that this is the well accepted form of the governance, we are hoping, Nepalese are hoping, that this is the stable phase to enter into the new era. And of course, at this moment, we will try to review our relations, especially with the India, in terms of 1950 treaty, in terms of report, submission of the report of the eminent persons group, which has reviewed Nepal-India relations upwards. And then at the same time, our economic relations, as we have diversified the relations with the other countries and the other northern neighbor, China, signing an agreement for approaching the ports, dry ports, and the seaports in China also, which is a basic diversification of Nepal's foreign policy, or the international trade and economic activities regarding a landlocked country. So now we see that in all these changing forms of international relations, or the Nepal-India relations, this is not only limited to the Nepal-India relations are, the fault lines are deepening. I don't see that, but this is a position made by a stable government in Nepali side. And of course that, as India published its new map in November last year, it has not consulted with Nepal, whereas we have seen that there are two areas, Susta and the Kalapani, or the Limpiadura, areas were not settled in terms of settling the border disputes or the border management process, which has been working since early 80s. So I will stop here, and we'll have, I'm sure that we will have some time to have a question answer, or taking some observations, or maybe some views from the participants. And finally, what I want to say is relationship as are diverse in between Nepal and India, which described as a special relation, and especially in terms of all aspects of the international relations. But now the modern nation state have to realize that it is not the age-old period, or only having the old mindsets and behaviors as we have seen in the past can deal today's relationship. So with this, I will stop here. And thank you, Chair. I think I will stop here.
Thank you, Deepak. Thank you very much for throwing some new ideas. Now I would request Ambassador Ranjit Rai, and may request him also to take into account Deepak's almost warning that they are they are reviewing India relationship with India and would probably recast it in terms of what